a superhero. I didn't follow like rules and regulations.
Such a loaded shoe. How do you give it new life? Specific colorway that makes it iconic. So how could I make you look at that with fresh eyes? My vocabulary in design is purely emotional. Cutting away this whole panel that was leather, taking the original swoosh, reapplying another swoosh that's of a different side. A little bit of like close your eyes and draw what you think you've known, and you notice that it's a little bit off.
Gray and white. Because it's like, when you think
What up? Back at it. It's so funny I feel like I'm a TV show host. Kicking off the new wave. We're doing this talk here around one of the most important sports icons, obviously, of all time, Michael Jordan. And we're gonna delve into his legacy surrounding the shoe. And, obviously me being a kid from Chicago, Michael Jordan himself sort of was my literal Superman, doing superhuman feats with like defiant style, ultimately having an impact on me and how I see the real world and athletes. So let me get started and introduce the guests that we've brought on stage today. First and foremost, Spike Lee, who's a legendary director, actor, who's been a longtime collaborator, early collaborator with Michael Jordan himself. So introduce him to the stage. That's good. Pleasure. Next, we have none other than Don C. I don't even know where to begin. Don, come out. I'll talk while you pull up. It's safe to say that this man here taught me more than like most human beings on planet Earth. The unity of Don C., Kanye West, myself, and Ivan Jasper dedicated our lives to traveling the globe and being representatives of the city of Chicago in this modern world. So it's a pleasure to have Don on stage. Next up, we have Aeali from Chicago, our camp of RSVP gallery. I think she's from LA though. Doesn't even matter. She's an icon in and of itself. Don C. And myself started a store called RSVP Gallery in Chicago, and she was instrumental in getting that project off and has gone on to be a stylist and measuring stick for style in the new generation. So as we have it, this esteemed panel of guests and contributors to culture, I wanted to open it up to the floor, just speaking about iconic moments in Jordan sort of history that had an impact on you and how you see the world. You can start with Spike.
Well, it started with me when Mike hit that shot against Georgetown, because I was a big Georgetown fan then with Patrick Ewing and all those guys. So that's when it first dawned on me.
Yeah, one shot.
That was the beginning.
Don?
My introduction to Michael Jordan.
Hold up, we'll get your mic sorted.
Check. 1, 2. Check. Yeah. My introduction to Michael Jordan would have to be after he was drafted by the Bulls. I didn't know how good he was. I didn't know about the shot at Georgetown in '82. Like, I was just too young. It didn't soak in. So being excited in the city about a new prospect in the city is what the initial excitement was coming from me. Where I recognized he was gonna be something different was the '84 Olympics.
I wanna dwell on this moment, because this is super important to me, is that a large amount of us on the stage being from Chicago, spending time, the idea that Jordan was just another like rookie of the year, high prospect, he's supposed to be great. Like that juxtaposition of what he does afterwards. So how old were you in high school?
Oh no, this is before high school. Just to tell my age, I was born in '76, so 84. I was 7.
But you remember, like, the city
old.
was like,
Oh, I remember. I remember when Jordan got drafted. We were excited. It was like, oh, Michael Jordan, a new rookie. But we didn't know how excited to be until before he even laced up Jordans to play for the Bulls. It was the Olympics that summer. Before he came to the NBA, that summer he played in the Olympics. And he showed out in the Olympics. And that's where he became like a global
legend
during, you know, the most coveted sports arena of every 4 years, you know. And he killed in that Olympics, and we just was bragging like, oh, he played for the Bulls. Like, he's coming to the Bulls. And so, you know, it's almost like your career. Like, all the major moment that you proud of, and then it just keeps going. Yeah. And then the next one, and then the next one.
Crazy.
Until, you know, what we know about his legacy now.
And Aeali, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I was born in '92, so a little bit later. You know what I mean?
A touch.
Jordan, for me, came into my life at different periods. So when I was born, my uncle bought me my first pair of J's. So 1992, I had the 7s. Mind you, I couldn't even speak. I didn't even know what Jordans were. And then, you know, I'm living in South Central Los Angeles, so it's like, you know, your sneakers, you had to be fresh, and everybody wanted, you know, Jordans. And then it kind of came around to where, you know, social media and Tumblr started like coming about. And honestly, you know, I'm on Don's Tumblr, I'm on Virgil's Tumblr. You know, I see Don with the Aqua 8s, and I'm just like, you know, you like regain like this love for the shoe over and over again. And, you know, it's like everyone who has worn this shoe that has been in my life, they've really like put their own, you know, swag to Jordan, and, you know, that really tied into, you know, how great this one person is, and that kind of tied me back into the history of who is Jordan.
Yeah. One thing that I love about our panel here is that we have like a Chicago tie. Like, Michael Jordan felt like our basketball player. He would have been that guy, whether the 6 championships or one great season or one dunk from the free throw line. But Spike, could you speak about it from an outside of Chicago mentality, where it's like you have your own teams?
Well, we had the New York Knickerbockers, and Michael Jordan killed us. What people don't know is, a lot of people know, Michael Jordan was born in Fort Greene, Brooklyn. Michael Jordan,
Facts.
Mike Tyson, Albert King, and Bernard King were born in Cumberland Hospital in motherfucking the Fort Greene.
Respect. That's
Fort.
respect.
Can you imagine that? One hospital. I grew up in Fort Greene. Crooklyn, that's Fort Greene. Michael Jordan, Mike Tyson, Bernard and Albert King, all born in the same hospital in the neighborhood I grew up in.
Facts.
So, that's history right there. But Michael Jordan killed the Knicks, we know that. But Starks dunked on him, though. 3 guys.
Which was a beautiful...
Which Mike still denies. He said, Spike, fuck you, Spike. That wasn't me. That was one of them.
Which brings us a perfect segue into what I'd like to delve into your work as well, is like, these are human beings, but they, through their talent, ascended from like not so how can you say it, like not a given circumstance, like growing up in neighborhoods, coming up the way they did, using sport to add color, unity, and join a whole nation into this sport that all influenced us. So for your aspect of visualizing Michael Jordan's early talent, can you speak to a little bit about, like, you know the guy, you know the sport, but when you were like, I need to add the visualization through commercials, through visuals?
Well, a lot of you probably know this story already, so please forgive me, it's redundant. But I did my first film was a film called She's Gonna Have It, and I played a character named Mars Blackman. And Mars Blackman loved Mike, he loved Jordans. And 2 guys, Jim Riswell and Bill Davenport, who worked at White and Kennedy, saw She's Gonna Have It, and they got the idea to put me and Mike together. Because Mike had just signed a deal with Nike. He also had director's approval. So they called me up, they said, we want you to play Mars, we want you to direct the commercials, we want to be in black and white like the film. And I said, there's one catch. He said, Michael doesn't know who the fuck you are, and he hasn't seen She's Gonna Have It. So it wasn't until All-Star Game 2 years ago in Toronto where I finally asked Michael, why did you choose me? Because at the time he got with Bob Garaldi.
Other director, yeah.
Yeah, big time Madison Avenue directors. Because I never directed a commercial, just barely directed my first film. And Mike told me, MD said, Spike, I chose you because you were wearing the sneakers.
Wow.
And that's how it happened.
And obviously I prefaced this in the earlier talk, but this is off campus. So this isn't just a talk for other people to talk about their work. It's a talk so that the audience can learn from our stories what they can apply to their work to see it advance. So that story is something I would underline.
And then like you said, I think we all, most of us grown up in an environment where sneakers, back in the day, if your sneakers weren't right, you couldn't come outside.
Right.
And I remember vividly, after begging my parents forever, they gave me $5 to buy my first pair of Cons. They were black Cons, black or white, high top or low top. That was it. If you had Cons, you were it. You had a thing like, if your sneakers slip and slide, get the ones that start on the side. Ask your mom to empty her purse.
Yeah.
To get the ones to say Converse. Sneakers, that's the shit.
Right.
Even had rhymes about the shit. And if you came out with some Skippies, oh man, you got murdered. People would literally not come outside if your sneakers weren't correct. That's the way it was in Brooklyn. You couldn't stay inside.
So, which is another perfect segue. Don C, the greatest thing that we know from our great friend Kanye West is like, whatever you remember is basically the only fact. But what you would tell the story about you, Ye, would come to the studio, like in New York. Talk to me about the sort of, as Spike mentioned, the pride that goes into what your sneaker choice is, about what was New York wearing and what were you guys wearing?
It was definitely a time in which we wanted to express our individual style and our collective style of the city and make some type of impression in the metropolis where we felt like we wasn't gonna get no recognition. So part of it was just being different. At that era, early 2000s, most of the music industry had just got exposed to designer sneakers. So it was real heavy Pradas. Everybody who had a little money had Pradas. And my approach was oh, you know what? I trade sneakers with these kids in Japan and in London, and I can get Jordans that I don't think these guys are gonna get. And because we from Chicago, let that be what we known for. When we pull up, we want people to be oh man, you got those Jordans from 7 years ago. Oh, those are the Jordans when Jordan won his 3rd championship. People would come up and they would say, how did you get those? And I was like, oh, I got somebody in Japan. And then people start asking me, so even when the music thing wasn't popping yet, that's what paid my bills. I would help people get Jordans,
And from what I going into what I remember too is the stories on tour building up where we're at now to be on the stage is that this Chicago unit was coming to New York while everyone was wearing Uptowns, Air Force Ones, and they would be like, yo, look at these guys.
Look at it, old Jordan. They still wearing Jordan. Jordan not even in the league no more.
And these guys, Kanye West, Don C, Ivan Jasper, pulling up in 3s. And I think it's super important to note that this is before retro. This is before this idea that, you remember how these shoes galvanize? Let's redo them. So the cultural attachment to wearing a Jordan in 2017 was a new idea that I feel like you guys championed to put in context. Hey, we're kids from Chicago. Our player doesn't go out of style. We, playoff colorways come out, the black version. Those things you carried on with you.
And from a design standpoint, anyone that works in a creative field knows that a lot of your content for creativity comes from stories. any stories that you know, any stories that people tell you that can add content to your product. And so no other muse to me on the planet Earth other than Michael Jordan for stories on design and product. I could think of a pair of Jordans for every single game Michael Jordan played. I could think of a unique thing that happened in every single game he played in to add a characteristic to a pair of shoes. So I don't see it ending. I like how the brand's approach is on retroing. Hopefully we even look at it even more coveted and even more special so it can stay special forever.
And Aeali, I think what's good in the style sector of these objects that can be so like male driven, male obsession, you have been a sort of beacon to show how to wear these shoes and extend Jordan brand to incorporate female sense of self and style.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan has always been, whether you were a man or woman, boy, girl, in the community where I lived in, South Central, you know, you had to have the freshest sneakers. And, you know, I wore uniforms. So it's like your only flex was your sneakers. So it's like you either gonna come to school with the flex or you just gonna look whack over there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was like, you know, everybody, especially when you're growing up, you want that acceptance. But, you know, you're like, for me, I was always hearing about Jordan, he's the greatest, he's a GOAT. And it's kind of like ties into like the man, the myth, the legend, you know? And it's like everybody wants to be tied into greatness, some way, shape, or form. And it's like, you could say he's the greatest athlete and you don't even have to say the sport. You know what I mean? Like, he's reached heights where you're like, yo, he's a kid like me and he had dreams and he achieved them. So it's like, that's how we saw Jordan. And then, you know, that's how I got into the whole flow. And, you know, I wasn't really looking at it like, oh, he's a basketball player, I'm into fashion. I really like took that and kind of made it, you know, my own and like related to my story, which was fashion. And, you know, I kind of do this streetwear looks, but, you know, tomboyish feel. But it's because I used to see, you know, my uncle and, you know, all the kids, and I'm like, yo, those are fresh. You know, like, you can't deny something that's fresh. It doesn't have, you know, anything. Like, you'd be like, those are fresh, I need. You know?
No, it's important. So, Spike, could you speak about, especially talking and making the sneakers your own? I'm going to delve into what the whole theme of this project was, which is sort of altering icons. In the, you know, I think it's safe to say that you created a legacy that is 2.0, the existing shoe. That's an early prototype for young designers like ourselves to alter the shoe. Could you speak about your special edition that currently runs within the Jordan brand?
It's the Spizike?
Exactly.
So I was begging Michael for a long time, come on, let me get a sneaker. So after numerous years, he broke down, probably got tired of me asking him, and we came with the design. We would take different elements of all the sneakers I did the commercials for.
Perfect.
And so that, you know, we're still doing that. And my son has a sneaker now. He's in the audience. Jax, he's a sneaker called Son of Mars. So it's been, you know, this coming year, in the next year's All-Star game in Los Angeles will be the 30th anniversary of the first commercial that ran that Mike and I did. So, you know, we've done a lot.
Yeah, and Don, you're, you know, multiple time collaborating with the Jordan brand in recent times. Tell us about pick out a few of your shoes that you're working on, maybe some in the past, and what stories did you use the opportunity to work with Jordan brand to sort of put forward?
Well, I'm so happy that our first commercial release, they let me do Jordan 1s for charity before then, which was an awesome experience. And then it led to my first commercial release, which was the Just Dine Air Jordan 2. And I'm so happy that that was like my first commercial collaboration with the brand, because to me that the original AJ2 represents what I'm all about. Luxury sportswear. I tell people all the time, I say I love sports, and I also like nice things. And for some reason, companies that made sports apparel thought that people that like sports also didn't like nice things.
Yeah, the common denominator.
That combination just didn't exist. And I feel like the Jordan 2 for me was the first time where I saw that. The approach Nike took was having the shoe manufactured in Italy, the best leathers at the time.
Yeah.
They approached it like a fashion brand would approach in their atelier designing some haute couture shoe but for a basketball player.
Yeah.
And so that's how I want to take that and really take that to the next level, that concept alone. So that's why I was happy that was the first collab we did.
And we got to give love to Tinker.
Yeah,
Tinker
the architect.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
He was right there.
Yeah, and I think another one for this like whole education arm, it's like when pitching a brand like Jordan or Nike, like, hey, I have this idea. Two like nuances is that all of us have had to pitch the same logo that's behind us. You know, Easy, sitting here in the front row, being the sort of first person to create a dialogue with Jordan that made segues for me to talk to Jordan, you know, like through this idea of wearing the sneakers, and we had to come with a compelling story. And what you may not notice is at first it was like, nah, it's okay. Like we're a big brand. Like we got things to focus on, but the story that's so pure and organic, and over time, speaking to Mike, saying that the commercials, they represent a shoe. Now look at that legacy getting passed on to his son. Don C's latest campaign involving the family as a part of the Jordan 2. Speak on that, because I think it's important, you know, I have like strong opinions, but my whole archetype is that we change the shape of what designers look like. Absolutely. These are little cogs in the wheel to do that, so that other kids can look like how we looked at Jordan to say, oh, I want to be a basketball player. They're looking at our projects to be like, I want to be a sneaker designer. So speak to that for your release about the family component.
I mean, I'm trying to impress on people that might look at my situation as that of a blessing, and like might want to say, hey, I'm inspired to see if I could add my creativity something and add some value to it. So I just want to like inspire those people and try to encourage them to like just stay at it. Like what you mentioned about people having to pitch ideas, don't get discouraged when the company says, nah, we good on that.
Yeah.
It's all good. That doesn't mean your idea is not awesome and great. Keep going at it. And when the synergy collides, it's gonna happen. And it's gonna be organic, and both sides are gonna see it, and then the audience is gonna see it and receive it well. So just everybody stay real encouraged to like keep at it. Look at the examples of the people up here, look at the examples in the audience, and you see people that are really doing it. And I mean, Virgil, we have to give huge commendation to Virgil. Like what he has done in a short period of time is amazing. It's really like, I can't believe it, you know.
I can't
Even though I'm seeing it and witnessing it, it's amazing. So it's like we gotta keep doing that, because it is the example for people like you. Like what Spike mentioned, Jordan messed with him because he noticed that Spike was of the culture.
And wore the shoes.
He wore the shoes. Mike was of the culture. So notice that like people that's out culture. Yeah.
Because some people be faking the funk on the culture. I don't want to get into it, but they don't know. But
That's
I think
why
they
it's
know.
authentic.
They
Mike
think
is
they know,
authentic.
or they don't know.
Mike is authentic because he's genuinely from it. And all these other people and things that's not from it, when they hit something in it, yeah, it's a hit, yeah, it's trendy, but it don't last because it's not authentic. Being real ain't never went out of style.
Yeah.
And so, for real, it's just like
Science.
Jules. So Aeali, I think it's also important. I like, you know, the generations that didn't grow up seeing Michael play and then coming post that, but sort of revering that and having that at the top of the, go ahead.
And not to cut you off, I think that's an amazing thing, because people thought that nobody would buy Jordans. There was a thinking that nobody was going to buy Jordans after he played, because you couldn't see him anymore.
Wow.
And how many years people buying Jordan never weren't even born. When his last year.
I just want to say that I have on 85s and I was born in 92.
And this
That's
thing,
amazing.
that's just, for me, it just shows how much a part of the culture is, where the man hasn't played in how many years?
Almost.
What was his last year? Google.
03.
Wizards.
03, I think,
Got
was
the
his last.
facts.
So
I
yeah,
was still
14
young.
years.
14 years ago. And
It's crazy.
So Elaine,
And I want to speak on, like, Mike was the first basketball player with gold chains on the court.
exactly.
Mike wore baggy shorts first. Mike wore the short socks first. Like, Mike did all these things that the
Bald
kids
head.
today think is culture, is the culture, but he invented it. He put it in the culture.
Right.
The bald head on the, like, it wasn't people rocking bald heads like that before Mike. Like, you was talked about like being George Jefferson or something going bald before Mike. Now you became R. Kelly. You know, maybe bad example, but somebody else cool.
somebody else, which is almost like let's as a
talking about Chicago.
yeah, I know. Moving on. One of the key highlights of why we're here and why, if you break down the mechanics of why he has such a cultural attachment, is his defiant energy. What are some things in Aeali? Maybe what's cool is like what translated on Tumblr image? Is it him hopping out the Testarossa with the Wayfarers in the suit? Or, shooting a free throw, eyes closed? What, for all three of you, I'll go down the line, but during the game of sport, which is why we're here, Nike, the innovation that was happening on the court, him, Tinker, figuring out the shoe, what part of Michael Jordan moments in the history stood out to you as something that you'll never forget while playing the game?
Yeah, for me, I mean, my first interaction was the Jumpman logo, but then seeing the Jumpman logo and then seeing the actual photo with the city behind it, that for me was like mind blowing. You know what I mean? And it's literally like somebody had a dream, somebody was from the culture, and they made it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was like, that represented who I was inside and the dreams that I had. And it's like, anytime, even if he lost, he still had this undefeated attitude. And I feel like, it's funny because I had a pair of flu games. And, I was just like, oh, they're called the flu games. And then I learned and he had the what? I would have been called out sick, I'm good,
Yeah.
But it's like he always had this spirit of being undefeated, and no matter if he dropped the ball, he always picked it up, So it's like when I saw the Jumpman logo, and then from there I'm looking up videos on the internet, dunks, Michael Jordan, and
What was Don? Obviously, it's so many sports. The game where he who was he playing against when he shrug, hit so many 3-pointers? Was it against the Knicks?
The shrug, that's against the Trailblazers, game 2 of the 92 finals.
Ask Don C anything.
oh my God.
Game 2 NBA finals, that was the shrug game. He had 7 3-pointers, which at that time was an NBA record.
Freshest sports almanac guy in his. Somebody get him an ESPN
What's so
show.
good about
ASAP.
Jordans is that every Jordan, you can go back and tell the story, like she just mentioned the flu game. And then it teaches the new kid, he learns about that history. So this is the new history class through design. It's we learn, and that's the cool thing about learning information when it's not force-fed to you. You appreciate receiving information when it's fun.
Yeah.
And you're excited about it. So it's so awesome how we could tell these stories through the design, and I think that's what I love.
Spike, I want to ask, being an avid Knicks fan, but also
Double nickel game.
yeah, and you having a personal relationship with the guy, how did that?
I didn't say shit to Michael when he came in the garden. I didn't say nothing. But it had to be that game. He scored 55 points in the world's most famous arena. And the Knicks were good then. Ewing, Oakley, Starks. I mean, we had a team. And Mike was, he was a beast. And you couldn't stop him. You knew what he was going to do, but it was unstoppable. And so you just had to say, he's the greatest ever. And just be happy that you were there to witness it. I was there courtside. 55 double nickel. It's the double nickel game on the Knicks. It was crazy.
And honestly, Jordan did it real humbly. He was humbly the best of all time. Like, he never went around saying he was the best of all time. He wouldn't even like say, I guarantee the Bulls are gonna win the championship. He would just go do it. When he was forced in those situations, I never forget the last Bulls championship game, Indiana Pacers forced them to 7 games in '98 to get to the finals against Utah again. And when the Bulls Bulls really didn't go 7 games with people. We would always go 5 or 6. Like,
Oh, you win 7 games
with the Knicks. Yeah.
Come on now.
So Indiana did force them in '98 to 7 games, and he said, I'm not here to say what it is. He was like, but we will win game 7. And he said, I'm not promising it. It just, that's what's gonna happen. He's like, that's what's gonna be in the history books later. We will win game 7. And they did. And so it's like his confidence is what drove him. It wasn't an arrogance. It was just being super confident about what you're doing on the court, and not only your talent, your hard work.
Yeah.
But the thing about Mike, he used people doubting him, his energy. I mean, if everybody go to this Hall of Fame speech, he went back to like the 2nd grade. Somebody said something.
Yeah.
And for me, that was a lesson. Like, there's some stuff that you might not like, but you could use that, turn that negativity into positivity as fuel. Which basically, I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
You know, and he did that. Michael, he was cut from his high school team. The greatest player ever was cut from his high school team.
Crazy.
Ever. Who was the coach?
Yeah. What decision?
And who made the team? And he didn't make the team. Who was that last person? We got between the 12th and the 13th person.
He had both of those people at his inaugural speech.
Yeah.
He did?
He had them.
Crazy. Like, yeah, it's super surreal. Like, just reflecting back on these things that made the shoe. It's like, it's not a coincidence. And I think it's important to say, like, the style lines on the Jordan 1, we sing 3 renditions of them here. Each evokes.
What's up with you?
Man, I made those, but ironically to all the people texting, I don't have shoes. But
We get you a pair.
yeah,
We got to work out getting Virgil a pair of the off-white Jordan 1s,
please,
y'all.
Please,
Can we hook that up?
But
Can I just say this real quick, because this gets overlooked a lot of time. We got to give love and respect to Phil Knight. People were telling him it'd be detrimental to the Nike brand to have this black man as a face of your company.
oh,
Let's leave out Uncle Ben, Aunt Jemima, leave him out. But his belief in Mike and the courage, because people were telling him it would hurt Nike to have this black man as a face of your brand, and Phil Knight did not listen.
which is
And that's fact.
yeah,
Applaud that.
exactly.
Fact.
You know, like, again, it's a message that will be reiterated a million times until we're all off and doing something else, which is not going to happen. That
For the younger people, don't think like always like that. You know, there were times, it was not like it is now.
6 championships, millions of units of sneakers.
On and off the court.
Yeah.
You had to win those like battle championships to be a part of the conversation. Like, where we feel like we represent the culture of the consumer, now the consumer has that say so on the products.
Yeah, we
Remember,
vote.
we used
These
to
are
receive
votes.
products and be like, man, what are they thinking? We want this, we want this. Now the conversation is us. We deliver, we are us. Where everybody's one. I see people in the audience that's in the audience that design Nikes.
Which is crazy.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like everybody's part of this. We all one movement and one culture, and and what I love about the people that's here, because the dedication of being here shows that these people are truly, genuinely about the culture.
Yeah.
It's for real.
We've sifted it out by, getting, thankfully to Nike, organizing this lavish, like, expensive idea that I was like, I don't want a line of kids outside sitting in folding chairs trying to get the shoe and then go back home. Like, nah, you're stuck listening to these stories because you need to design these next shoes. there's 85, there's 2017. This is Super 2017, all fly knit Jordan. As we wrap up, what would you guys see the future of Jordan? What do you guys like to see as the future? Like, let's put ourselves in Gmo's seat, or who, you know, like what would you say? Like we just did this perfect survey of the history. We're all in the conversation. I'm going to ask a few people out there, like, what would you like to see from brand Jordan release next that they might not have touched on, a personal memory? First, starting here, quick. You didn't even have to think it.
One quick idea is like infuse on like interest of Mike and things that are like obscure that people don't know about. Maybe like some of his hobbies or something like that, and then branch out to the kids that like do those things, like Mike golf. He play ping pong, cigars. Well, they've done the cigar movement. But just other things, when people do research about Mike, maybe it could tap into something outside of the normal collaborations and something really
which is like, check Mike's story. You take this, go watch these DVDs.
Like artists he might collect, you know, or just go do research and then come back with an idea.
What I would like to see Mike more.
Exact fact.
You know,
he was supposed to be here. That was my original
like
request.
Recluse. I mean, if you ain't on a golf
imagine if Mike was
course,
here.
you ain't seen his ass. So somehow, I would just like, because people love him, and they weren't even born. So somehow they could just, I talk about him. I said, but people want to see you.
Yeah.
People want to. Is he real?
Yeah.
Is he real? People want to see you.
Yeah. For me, I think it's opening up more of the conversation, you know, where does women exist in this?
Fact.
Because, you know, I was on Tumblr, and, you know, Don's wife, Kristen, I was like, yo, this girl is fresh. She wears Jordans. And then, you know, Vashti created the twos.
Yeah.
And for me, that was like iconic, you know, to see women, you know, play this role where, you know, they take their Chanel bag and then they pair it with their Jordans. And that's really, you know, where got the swag from, you know, and it's like taking that and, you know, just opening up that conversation. It's like, you know, girls, we can wear heels, but we can also be fresh like the guys, you know? And yeah, I would like to see you over there.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Like some Jordan Sky Dunks?
You know, we could do that. We could do that.
And of course, the off-white Jordans should come every year.
Yeah.
With the Just Dons.
Thank you. Thank you. We finished the Jordan talk. I think it's been very engaging. I'm glad that we had input from you guys. Round of applause for the panel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Virgil.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nike. And thank you, everybody here.
Sick.
And I would just like to say thank you, because you guys are also mentors for me too. So,
Sick.
squad.
Yeah, super squad.
Thank you.
Perfect.